Weirdness. Let's talk about it. And let's get this fucking thing off my face. Because that was way too many takes. My flatmate and I have recently noticed that we use the word weird quite a lot, and we use it in a context which suggests that weirdness is a bad thing. Like, why are you doing that? That's weird. But then we started to wonder, what's wrong with being weird? Maybe being weird is a good thing. I mean, seriously, if people didn't deviate from society and hold attitudes and beliefs that seemed weird to the majority, then we would never have challenged and abolished slavery. And women would still have rigid gender roles that didn't include things that today we might consider mainstream, like having a career. Weirdness is incredibly important and perhaps even crucial to moral progress. When we consider that the first people to challenge racism, sexism, and homophobia were all weird in the eyes of the many, surely your being weird should be taken as a compliment. Okay, come on, Jack. Another day. Today you will smash it. You will. You're the alpha. You're the alpha male. Look at that tricep. You are the one. Oh, where are my hands going? Where are they going? Oh, don't go too low, Jack. Don't do it. You are the one. Nobody beats you. Today is your day. Yeah. Here we go, baby. You got this.
You're so weird.
Thanks. Now, of course, an idea being weird doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be good. Plenty of weird ideas are bad, like Chinese water torture, the human centipede 3, whatever the hell this is. And actually, it seems to me that weird or unusual views are more likely to be unjustified than non-weird views that are prevalent in society. So deferring to the consensus is often a wise heuristic, since you can't investigate everything yourself and other people know things you don't. So it makes sense that we would have lower confidence in, say, an argument being true if it's weird. However, history shows us that we shouldn't reject an idea on the sole basis that it seems weird or outlandish. But nobody wants to be seen as the weirdo, and perhaps a desire to not be the weirdo has evolved due to certain selection pressures. Presumably, if everyone around you is doing something, it's likely because it has some kind of benefit. And let's not forget that we all have a deep-rooted fear of rejection. Right? Or is that just me? When you're a vulnerable infant who will literally die without the support of the adults around you, rejection from your community seems fairly detrimental to the replication of your genes. I mean, maybe the children who had this fear of rejection were less likely to behave in ways that resulted in abandonment. And even as adults, our hunter-gatherer ancestors probably didn't fare well after expulsion from the group. Fitting in with the group and not rocking the boat with your weird ideas or behaviour seems safer. Anyway, what I really want to say is, people often tend to take weird ideas less seriously. If an idea sounds weird to you, you're almost immediately less likely to believe it or even be open-minded to it, even if there's overwhelming evidence in its favour. Think about how some religious people fail to even bother looking into the evidence for evolution because it just seems so absurd to suggest that Jennifer Lopez has a common ancestor with a lobster. Today, advocating for veganism or anti-speciesism is weird, and I'm really not using that in a derogatory way. It's weird in the same way that advocating for the abolition of slavery was weird in the 18th century. But regardless of the weirdness, I want to promote anti-speciesism, because I think it's one of the most effective ways to make the world a better place. So, how is any of this useful? Well, here's the thing. If someone perceives one of your ideas as weird, that's going to influence how they perceive many of your other ideas. The halo effect refers to the tendency for impressions of a person in one area to influence our opinions of them in other areas. And the halo effect can work in reverse. So if we're normal in many ways, our weird beliefs will seem more normal too. So I recently had a conversation where a friend of mine, let's call him Tim, because that's literally his name, suggested that vegans should get involved with non-animal related activism. He suggested that by getting involved with other social movements, we can build bridges between communities, and we can show that vegans are compassionate towards humans as well as non-humans. Sounds reasonable, right? Then again, Tim is weird. Firstly, he's been arrested multiple times. He thinks it's unethical to have children. He's an anti-capitalist. He has this weird thing he does with his trousers and the TV remote. I don't really want to talk about it, to be honest with you. Sometimes I still think about it when I close my eyes at night. Anyway, he's weird. That mask you saw at the start of the video, obviously that didn't belong to me. I don't even need to say it. I don't even know why I'm saying it, because you guys would know that I wouldn't own something that weird. I wouldn't. Now, unless you're a prison convict who also wants to abolish capitalism and punish TV remotes, hearing those things probably makes you less likely to be open to his argument. In other words, if you find it weird that Tim thinks it's unethical to have children, you're probably less likely to take his views on veganism seriously. And if it's true that expressing a weird belief in one area will negatively influence how people perceive your other ideas, then depending on the context, getting involved with other activist communities might potentially be harmful to our effectiveness in promoting veganism. For instance, if people think you're willing to get arrested at an environmental protest, which is weird, they may then be less likely to take your views on veganism seriously. So in the article that inspired me to make this video, Peter Wildford suggests that we have a set amount of weirdness points, almost like a kind of currency, and if we want to be effective in changing attitudes, we should spend those points wisely. In social psychology, the weirdness points concept described by Peter is known as idiosyncrasy credits, first defined by Edwin Hollander in 1958. According to Wikipedia, idiosyncrasy credits are earned each time an individual conforms to a group's expectations, and spent each time an individual deviates from a group's expectations. Hollander's original work on idiosyncrasy credit is premised on the assumption that all individuals sharing a common group membership also share common group-based expectations of each other, and failure to fulfill these expectations will result in expulsion from the group. If all of this holds up, then someone could quite plausibly argue that as advocates, we should recognise that we only have a few weird points to spend if we want people to take us seriously, and that rather than advocating for all of our weird ideas, we may be more effective if we advocated for one of them. Now, this is interesting for me to think about because, and let's face it, I've spent my fair share of weird points. I mean, I recently approached strangers in the park to ask them how they feel about the ethics of bestiality, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The conversation. Not the bestiality. There wasn't any bestiality. But hey, I can make up for it, right? I just got to be less weird in other ways. That sounds reasonable. I can just act more like a normal human being. Like this. Now, in Peter Wildford's article, he suggests that we should aim to spend our weird points effectively. Say, for instance, that you care about advocating for open borders, but you also care about advocating for veganism. Well, it might be beneficial to focus on whichever you think will achieve the most good, perhaps taking into account the scale of the problems they would address, their neglectedness and tractability. The point is, according to the article, if you're a vegan advocate with lots of other radical ideas, you might be a more effective vegan advocate if you stop talking about all the other weird shit you care about. Are you taking notes, Tim? Leave the fucking TV remote alone and come pick up that weird mask that definitely doesn't belong to me. But seriously, not all weird ideas are equally important. Some weird ideas have the potential to spare billions of animals from experiencing agony. And perhaps those are the ideas we should be spending our points on. But this idea of having a limited amount of weirdness points to spend if you want to be as effective as possible has further implications. Because it's not just our ideas that make us seem weird. It's our appearance, our behaviours, our mannerisms. The way we appear to others goes beyond the ideas we advocate for. Let's take the example of physical appearance. First off, I think in an ideal world, people should dress however makes them most happy. In an ideal world, people would be able to look weird, and that wouldn't negatively impact our ability to be convinced by their arguments. Whether or not we're convinced by their arguments ought to be based on the arguments themselves, not the traits of the one presenting it. And lookism, the discriminatory treatment of people who are perceived to fall short of societal notions of beauty, is a problem that I wish didn't exist. Hold on. Is talking about lookism going to use up my weirdness points? Fuck. I might as well put the mask back on. As a general rule of thumb, I think vegans tend to care less about adhering to social norms. I mean, we literally broke from a social norm to maintain a vegan lifestyle in the first place. I think vegans, more so than the general population, tend to present themselves in ways that don't conform to societal norms. But here's the thing, through the lens of the weirdness points theory, by presenting ourselves in more unique ways to show our individuality, we're spending weirdness points, which might make the normies less likely to take our ideas seriously. Which sounds problematic to me, because I literally have a cow tattooed on my arms. Oops. But if all of this is true, I guess it could be argued that we should sacrifice our desire to appear edgy or unique in order to be more effective as anti-speciesist or vegan advocates. Anyway, I thought I'd make a video on this topic because I found the concept quite thought-provoking, but I don't know if the evidence is strong enough to back it up in a manner that justifies notable behaviour change. There are good reasons for not being weird, but often there can be good reasons for being weird as well. I'll leave a link in the description box for those of you who are interested in learning more about the weirdness points theory. I'm also aware that the weirdness points idea is perhaps in itself a weird idea. So I might be using up your weirdness points just by telling you about it. Sorry about that. Anyway, moving forward, maybe I should try to be less weird. But I'm not making any promises. Thanks for watching, and a big thank you to my Patreon team who are supporting the channel and making these videos possible. See you soon.
Fuck! This is gonna be so hard. You almost had it. That was almost good.
No,
I know.
I see
I'm
you
terrible.
You are so weird. You're so fucking.